about to give them what they want. I don't think they're ready for this though. Beast mode, beast mode, beast mode, beast mode, beast mode, beast mode, beast mode.
What's good, YouTube? You know who it is. Curus Jones representing Pump Chasers, and you already know. Go to TigerFitness.com and get your Pump Chaser subs. And you already know, man. Get your Overrated Legend tee at Beastmode316.com. You better get them before they run out, because once they're out, most likely they will not restock. Overrated Legend tee. Shout out to the late great Serge Nubray. He in fact paved the way. So homies and homettes, some of you might notice this video looks familiar, and that is because I already posted it about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Fun fact, a shitload of videos, at least 10 plus videos, I accidentally erased them, and this video is one of them. This video was at about 40,000 views before I accidentally erased it, but here it is, I'm reposting it. Now before this video start, let's get one thing understood. I know lately I've mentioned YouTubers recently. I literally just did a video on Lane Norton, okay? I'm not here looking for drama or looking for clout. Please believe if I wanted some clout, I know human nature. Just do a lot of name calling, a lot of low vibrational, low hanging fruit methods. I know exactly how to get some attention. I'm literally just trying to engage. Bodybuilding is backed by all universal laws and principles, and with that said, just like we have philosophy, we have training philosophy. I simply want to philosophize with my peers. If you're out here preaching the good word of bodybuilding and people look to you for guidance and education, I consider you a philosopher. We are philosophers, and I want to philosophize. Point blank period. I'm not looking for no trouble. And just like with Lane Norton, this video here, I explain I do not like Mike Israetel's choice of words. Words have power. Like it or not, Mike Israetel is an influencer. He has a PhD in sports physiology. Therefore, some people will take every word he says to heart regarding bodybuilding. He has a high level of influence, therefore he should choose his words carefully. I do not like his choice of words. Using a word like overrated is already a strong statement. But as an educated person with a large platform, using a word like way overrated to describe an exercise, you gotta have some strong facts to back your claims. Words have power. When we speak from our tongue, our vocal cords vibrate. Vibrations create waves, and waves, this is a fact, not an opinion, waves carry energy. Remember, at the beginning was the word. Even the Hindus, they preach about the throat chakra. You gotta be careful what you say, because some words might come back and shock you, the throat chakra. Even in the Bible, the tongue can speak life or death. Words have power, and I do not like his choice of words, period. And Mike Israetel, if you're watching this video, if you disagree with anything I say, feel free to hit me up for a live debate. We will speak live. Absolutely no editing whatsoever. However the conversation goes, it will be posted on YouTube as is. Posted as is, no editing whatsoever. If you disagree with anything I say, like I said, I consider us trainers, we're like philosophers. We preach training philosophy. And I'm just simply trying to engage and philosophize with my peers. That's it. I'm ready anytime. Well, anyway, guys, here's the video. Be sure to comment below and let me know what you think. And share with a friend. All right, it really helps to get the word out. So this video right here is a response to Mike Israetel's video, Hip Thrust or Way Overrated. On this video, he has Brett Curus in the thumbnail. Now, fun fact about Brett Curus, I'm sure a lot of people can agree, especially if you follow Brett Curus and his work. He pretty much brought more awareness, made hip thrust more popular amongst the YouTube fitness community. I was even influenced by him. Look at this clip right here. You want to extend at these hips under resistance to really get the most bang for your butt more bang for your butt when you're training these glutes. Here we go. Now I got this right here. I'll put the description where I bought this from for people who got a home gym and stuff like that. I got this from Brett Couture's website, BC Strength. Great investment, okay? I even get the bar as well. And she loves this.
I know, it makes such a big difference.
All right.
Can you go with the little one?
Yeah, with the little one. Cool. Okay, we have a high one and we have a short one. She has a short one. All right? Yeah. So you set the bar in the crease of your hips. As you see, or thoracic spine, upper back area is against this pad. And there you go, extend. And we squeeze that. We're gonna do 10 reps. Let's get from this angle and then from the side. Ooh. Like I said, he brought more awareness to the hip thrust in the YouTube fitness community. So when I saw Mike Israetel's title, Hip Thrust or Way Overrated, I was very surprised. I'm surprised because, you know, Mike Israetel, he's educated in the field. He has a PhD in sports physiology, hence the name Dr. Mike. And since he has credibility in his field, you know, people hang on to his words. His words has power. He has influence over others. And when you use words like way overrated, I feel like that's a strong statement. And when you use words like way overrated, you gotta have some hard facts to back your claims. Which is why I'm making a response to this. I think it'll be fun. Okay. Now, before we begin, let's look up the word overrated. What does it say when you Google the meaning of overrated? So here we go. Just Google it, okay? Overrated. If something or someone is overrated, that person or thing is considered to be better or more important than they really are. And this right here I just found. It's all about expectations. Being overrated means that people will expect something good or really good, but then be disappointed to find out that it's only average or bad. So this is what overrated means. Mike Israetel in his title says way overrated. So in his video is over 12 minutes long. Be sure to watch the whole video if you're interested, right? If you haven't already seen it. I'm just gonna show little clips. So in his video, he gives 3 upsides to hip thrust. And then he gives his 2 downsides. And these 2 downsides is supposed to justify why he believes hip thrust is overrated. In my opinion, it's okay to not like an exercise. You know, it's okay to not be a fan. But to say something is overrated, you gotta have hard facts. You know, exercises are just tools in the toolbox. And there are many exercises to choose from. I'm personally not a huge fan of the flat dumbbell bench. I prefer hammer strength machines or any kind of pressing machine where you can do one arm individually. But I'm not gonna say dumbbell bench presses are overrated. You know? Alright, so let's get to the 3 upsides he gave us, okay? The 3 upsides he gave us. Let's go.
Talk about some upsides and downsides of hip thrust. Let's actually talk about the upsides first of hip thrust, because they do have upsides. First, hip thrusts are a direct isolation exercise for the glutes. And there are just not that many direct isolation exercises for the glutes. Sumo squats and deadlifts, lunges of various kinds, step-ups, etc. They're all quad and adductor and glute and some lower back and some other stuff. So it's nice to have hip thrusts around to just check that box of like, bro, just glutes, just glutes.
So this upside he just gave, he says hip thrust has an upside because you're able to isolate the glutes. Now, keep in mind, guys, I'm talking to the bodybuilding community here, or women who want to build glutes, okay? But I'm talking to the bodybuilding community here. I'm in the high volume training. And one thing about bodybuilding training, I'm not talking about fitness training. I'm talking about bodybuilding training. We want to do isolation movements. We have compound movements and we have isolation movements for a reason. Business is all about supply and demand. And there's a business of bodybuilding. When I'm in the gym, I'm handling my business. Isolation movements are a must if you want a quality physique. If you want to hit as many fibers as possible, put different types of stimulation on the muscle, isolations are a must. If I go to the gym and just do bench press with no flies, in my opinion, the chest workout was not complete. When I go to the gym, I like doing rows, pull downs, and straight arm pull downs. I believe Mike calls them lat prayers. Business is all about supply and demand. And there is a demand, a high demand for isolating the muscle. So the point I'm trying to make is this. His upside literally contradicts the whole overrated statement. This upside alone, being able to isolate your glutes, one of the strongest muscles in the body, by the way, one of the biggest muscles in the body, by the way, being able to isolate this muscle group proves that this exercise is not overrated. That's all I'm saying. Let's get to the second upside.
Point number 2, upside for glute thrusts, is some people get really good results from them. People have done a bunch of different stuff, and there's so many of these stories. If you know who Brett Contreras is, he has tons of these stories to tell, and they're real stories, real people who like did all kinds of stuff, did lunged and squatted to the moon. Nothing really happened with their glutes. They got some gains, but it was unimpressive. They started adding in hip thrusts, and magic happened.
So as you see, he clearly said out his own mouth, hip thrust has worked for others. Not only does hip thrust work for others, guys, but there's actually studies showing that they work. I'll put 2 in the description. One of these studies, Brett Contreras himself was behind. I'll put 2 studies at the very bottom of the description below. Check these studies out if you happen to give a fuck. There's several studies backing up that hip thrust work. There was even one study I saw that there was a group that did squats only, and there was a group that did hip thrust only. The group that did hip thrust only built glutes. But the group that did squats only, not only did they build glutes, but they built quads as well. So what did that tell you? What that tells me is, why not do both? Why not do both? You're going to be able to hit your glutes from 2 different angles. And since you're lying horizontal, you know, gravity comes straight down. Since you're lying horizontal on a hip thrust, you're able to get some isometric contractions. Again, overrated is expecting something good and being disappointed to find out that it's only average or bad. I think it's fair to say expecting something good means expecting gains. We go to the gym to make gains. So if the shit is proven to give us gains, I think it's fair to say it's not overrated, especially way overrated. So these 2 upsides alone clearly proves hip thrust is not overrated. Again, you don't have to like the movement. You don't have to be a fan. But when you use your platform to say things like overrated, I mean, this is just my opinion. That's irresponsible as an influencer, especially when you're in the science field. Period. That's just my opinion. Let's get to the third and final upside.
Hip thrusts have an ability to help you develop a really good mind-muscle connection. That peak contraction and that lowering on the way down, controlling with your glutes, it really lets you feel your glutes. Because lunges, squats, and deadlifts, and all the other great exercises for the glutes, you're like moving around and it's hard, but sometimes it's really tough to actually feel your glutes. And some people have an issue where they can't really connect with their glutes that well. And with hip thrusts, when they learn to connect with their glutes using hip thrusts, because it's a great exercise to teach that connection, they may be able to take that connection and apply it to other exercises, which are biomechanically and anatomically and physiologically better, cause more muscle growth more robustly at hip thrusts, and then benefit more in those exercises because of essentially the learned skill of connecting to the glutes.
So he said this exercise, hip thrust, that's overrated, can help you build a deeper connection with your glutes. This again proves hip thrusts are not overrated, because not only do they have physical benefits, but they give you spiritual benefits. Being able to take your mind, the neurons, and literally connect with your neuromuscular system on a deeper level. That's the science of mind-muscle connection, by the way. We have a central nervous system. We have a muscular system. When you take those neurons and connect with your muscular system, that's when you have the neuromuscular system. You're literally building, you're becoming one with your body. Not only does this exercise have physical benefits, but it has spiritual benefits. Bodybuilding is backed by all universal laws and principles. All codes apply. There's even science backing up. If I got two men, let's just say they're twins, clones, and they're both curling 30-pound dumbbells, the guy who's really putting his mind into the muscle, really focusing on the form patterns, really squeezing his muscles with every rep, versus the guy who's just going through the motion, the guy who's putting his mind into the shit with intent is gonna get more results.
Each week, adding weight when possible. And after the 8 weeks, they measured hypertrophy of the biceps and the quads, and they found that there was significantly more biceps hypertrophy in the internal focus, or the mind-muscle connection group.
This exercise gives you a better mind-muscle connection, which means you're gonna be more efficient on the neurological level. These three upsides, ironically, prove that this exercise is not overrated, especially way overrated. Not only does it isolate the muscle, we have compound movements and isolation movements for a reason. Not only does it isolate the muscle, it's been proven. Numbers matter, especially in the science world. Proven to give people results. And it gives you a better mind-muscle connection. Those three things alone prove it's not overrated. Now, for the fun part, let's get to his two downsides. We just covered the three upsides. Let's get to the two downsides on why he feels hip thrusts are overrated. This is supposed to be the nail in the coffin. This is supposed to prove why hip thrusts are way overrated.
Those are at least three good things about hip thrusts. But there are two things about hip thrusts that are not great. One of them is meh, not great. The other one is kind of the death knell that really is the core of what I'm going to say in this video. First downside, hip thrusts are painfully annoying to set up. You may be lucky that your gym has a machine for hip thrusts or one of those hip thrust sled setup things. Even still, it could be annoying. But if you're doing hip thrusts with the old barbell and the pad and the bench behind you, sometimes you have to use so much weight because the glutes are real strong in that position. Or even if you don't use a ton of weight, you got to slap the plates on, you got to slap more of it in, you got to warm up, you got to roll the bar off you got to roll the bar back on. And when the set is done and you've done hip thrusts with, 5 sets of 10 with 405, you're like, oh god damn, I got to drag 4 plates off this thing. It's like a deadlift. It's so fucking annoying. You can't take the weights, put them on, take them off. Ugh, it's a thing.
So for the first downside, he says with his own words, it's a pain in the ass pretty much to put those plates on, pull the plates off. In my opinion, now this is my opinion, I want you guys to comment below because we're all different. Trust me, I've leg pressed 10 plates before, right? And some days, pain in the ass. And some days, I'm in a good mood and putting those 10 plates on and pulling them off is no big deal. So this is gonna vary person to person. But let me tell you this, putting plates on the bar for hip thrusts is no different than putting plates on the bar for a deadlift or Romanian deadlift or stiff legs or heavy ass squats or anything else. It's work. It's work. You're gonna put your plates on, you're gonna pull your plates off, and you're gonna re-rack your weights. It's no different. Now, I will say this. If you got a bad lower back, it could be a pain in the ass, bending over, putting those plates on. I will say that because I've dealt with back issues in the past. And putting plates on, having to bend over, putting like 3, 4, 5 plates on, and then taking those plates off can be a pain in the ass. But we do have deadlift jacks. A lot of gyms these days, not all, but a lot of gyms these days have deadlift jacks where you're able to lift the bar up and put your plates on and slide them off. Or you can go to Amazon, buy you a deadlift wedge, put it under the weight, slide the plates off. Or you can get you like a little 5-pound plate, put it under the weight, pull the plates off. It's not a big deal. He also said it could be uncomfortable sliding the bar over your legs, right? Sliding the bar off of your legs. I'll agree with that. This is why a lot of gyms have hip thrust machines. Now, just like hack squats, guys, there are some hack squats I like and there are some I don't like. All machines are not equal, which is why we have several brand names of these machines. Me personally, I like the hip thrust brand by a company called Arsenal. They have a pretty good hip thrust. Now, as far as being uncomfortable to do it free weighted, that's gonna vary person to person. Depending on how high or low your bench is. Notice on that clip earlier, I had a small bench and a large bench. Now, a lot of you might see people use a bench at the gym. Those benches are cool, but keep in mind, if you're very tall, very short, whatever, it's gonna vary person to person. Some people use so much energy trying to set up when they're using a bench. It's too high. That's why I got these things right here. All right? We all have different torso lengths. Not only do we have different torso lengths, we have different lower leg lengths. You know, we have different femur lengths. We have different tibia fibula lengths. So you got to take these things into consideration. You know, some benches might be too high for you. Some benches might be too low for you. So I will agree with that. It could be a pain in the ass to get set up, but not for everybody. It's gonna vary person to person. It depends how you're built. It depends how high or low that bar is. You know, these things do matter. You have to take these things into consideration. Now keep in mind, Mike Israetel, he's 5'6", and he's a 212 competitor, if I'm not mistaken. He's a 212 competitor in bodybuilding, if I'm not mistaken, at only 5'6". So I'm guessing in the off season, he's somewhere between 220 pounds, 240 pounds. Now think about that, 5'6", somewhere between 220, 240 pounds. Yeah, it could be a pain in the ass for him to slide the bar over his big legs and slide the bar and get in position. He's a big dude, you know, especially for his height. That's bias. It comes off bias. You know, as coaches, trainers, whatever you want to call us, I like to look at exercises as just tools in the toolbox. I have clients doing dumbbell bench press, even though I'm not a fan. Their gym don't have hammer strength. Some guys prefer dumbbells over the hammer strength. It feels more natural to them. I'm not going to say it's overrated just because I don't like it. We can't be biased. You know, just because you don't want to put 5 or 6 plates on the bar and you think that's too much work, the next person probably don't mind. Just because it's uncomfortable for you to set up with a barbell hip thrust don't mean it's going to be uncomfortable for the next person. There are plenty men and women doing the free weighted barbell version of a hip thrust just fine. So again, this downside does not prove this exercise is overrated. It proves this exercise is not overrated because it's going to vary person to person. Just like a flat bench is going to vary person to person. I love dips, by the way. There are some people that just ain't going to fuck with dips. You know, I like doing upright rows with a shoulder width grip. There are a lot of people that can't fuck with upright rows. The way they're built, and they don't have that neurological connection. They don't have that great neurological connection. It's going to cause them injuries. They're swinging too much. They're jerking too much. They're not leading with their elbows, right? So it's going to vary person to person. Hip thrust is not the only exercise that's going to vary person to person. A lot of movements are going to vary person to person. And just because you don't like it, don't make it overrated. Now, the second and final downside. This is supposed to be the nail in the coffin. This is supposed to be the bread and butter on why hip thrusts are supposed to be way overrated. Here it is.
That's a downside, for sure. But it's not the biggest one. The biggest one is that the hip thrust accentuates the load on the glutes at the very top in their peak contracted state when you're hip thrusting through. And then as you lower, biomechanically, there's less and less and less, exponentially less load placed on the glutes, such that at the very bottom of the hip thrust, where you're basically producing almost no force, bottom stretch is actually the most muscle growth promoting point of any movement. So if you have the most load at the bottom stretch, you're growing a ton of muscle. If you have the same roughly amount of load at the bottom stretch, you're growing a very decent amount of muscle. If you have the lowest load of the movement at the bottom, the movement is now inferior for muscle growth compared to the other two.
So as you see, he says it's because there's no loading in the stretch position. And the stretch position is where most of the gains come from. And I agree. You can't argue with science. But let's not forget, there's 3 parts of a muscle contraction. There's 3 types of contractions. There's isometric contraction that we don't talk about enough. That can be a whole video by itself.
What I've been having my clients doing is holding the weights in the fully contracted position for up to 15 seconds. And then once they recognize their static strength is about to go, they start lowering the weight very slowly. And the results I'm achieving are literally phenomenal.
There's so much science backing up isometric contractions. And without the science, it should be common sense because there's 3 parts of a contraction. Isometric is one of them. Then you have concentric and you have eccentric. Eccentric, the negative, that's supposed to be where most of the damage occurs. And if you can get loading in the stretch position, that's going to give you so much gains. That's going to give you a lot of gains because you're producing so much contractile force. You're producing a lot of contractile force because you're loading in the stretch position and you have to get out of it using your muscle. So I agree. But again, I like volume training for bodybuilding based goals. We have compound movements and we have isolation movements for a reason. If you want to tax the glutes from a stretch position, that's what we have the deep lunges for. That's what we have the step-ups for. We already have movements that's going to load the muscle from a stretch position. Which again proves why hip thrust is not overrated. It's supply and demand. Not only does the hip thrust isolate the glutes, but it's going to load the muscle in a top position. These exercises like the lunges, the deep lunges, even squats, they do a very good job at loading at the bottom, but notice once you get to the top, it gets easier. So what hip thrust is going to do, it's going to fill in that gap. You already got exercises loading at the bottom. Now, let's get something to load at the top. So in this clip right here, Mike used skull crushers as an example to prove his point. Check out this clip right here.
If you are doing skull crushers, at the very top of the skull crusher, this is easy because the vector relation to gravity is super tiny, and thus you could skull crush like 1 trillion pounds from here to here, but you only need, you're skull crushing 65. So this is the easy part. The lockout's super easy with skull crushers. The biomechanics are such that the vector is the most forceful right here at the bottom where your triceps are the most stretched. So the skull crusher biomechanically, that's a gnarly exercise. It's that first kind of exercise where the bottom stretch is also the mechanically most difficult part. That makes the skull crusher a fucking great exercise.
So as you see, he said skull crushers work great because you're able to load at the bottom. But notice he also said there's not much loading at the top lockout position. You can, his words, not mine, you can lock out 1 trillion pounds because it's easier. There's no tension up there.
At the very top of the skull crusher, this is easy because the vector relation to gravity is super tiny, and thus you could skull crush like 1 trillion pounds from here to here.
So due to this logic, because he used skull crushers as an example, right, to prove his point, we should just go to the gym and do skull crushers for our triceps and nothing else. We should just do skull crushers for our triceps and nothing else. And let me tell you, if you do that, you will build some great triceps. Want to know why? Because you're loading from the stretch position and you're producing a lot of contractile force on the way up. But what about the extension at the top? See, this is why we have exercises like tricep kickbacks. Extend at the shoulder. Remember, the triceps, they insert at the elbow, but they attach at the back of the humerus and the shoulder blade. So extend at the shoulder and then kick back. Maybe use a cable. Kick back. Yes, it might not load very much at the bottom, but guess what? You're gonna load at the top. Don't forget this. Don't ever forget this. As bodybuilders, not only do we want to lengthen our muscles, but we want to shorten, squeeze our muscles as well. There's a reason why we have leg extensions for the quads. Yes, we have squats, but we have leg extensions as well. Guys, we want to shorten those muscles as much as we can. We want those peak contractions. You have mass, and then you have mass with class. If you want those horseshoe sculpted triceps, yeah, doing the skull crushers will give you that mass. But if you want those them stems and shit, them lines, you need to hit as many fibers as possible. You can't hit as many fibers as possible if you're only loading at the bottom position. Do some shit that's gonna load at the top position. Get some isometrics in, practice your posing, hit the muscle from different angles. Even with glutes, you know, you wanna really tax that medius, right? The gluteus medius. Remember, abduction of the hips is one of the functions, which is why we have a hip abductor machine. Now, do you have to do it? No. But if you want to tax as many fibers as possible, why not do your kickbacks? Why not do your hip abduction? Why not do your hip thrust? Why not do your squats? Hit those angles. Hit as many fibers as possible. Why not? I'm not one of these one exercise fit all guys. I like volume and attacking the muscle from different angles. There's mass. Yes, there's mass. But I like mass with class. When I'm lean, I won't cut from my upper chest to the lower. I want lines on my shoulder. I want those pumpkin lines. I want the horseshoe triceps. I want the brachialis on the side of my arm looking crispy when I'm lean. I want everything detailed. And you're not gonna achieve the ultimate level of balance and muscularity not hitting your fibers, not hitting your angles. Point blank, period.
And exercises that really stretch you under load, like a super deep push-up or cambered bar bench press or dumbbell press, are just straight up superior for hypertrophy on a set per set equated basis than exercises that don't cause that stretch. Now, try lunges, walking lunges with barbells, dumbbells, reverse lunges, and especially front foot elevated lunges.
Now, notice in that clip, the exercises he suggested were lunge-based, different variations of lunges. If you watched any of his recent glute training videos, he's promoted sumo squats. Okay, so he's promoted sumo squats. different variations of lunges to hit those glutes. But think about that. What's the common denominator of sumo squatting and different variations of lunges? Think about it. The knees. These exercises require you to have healthy knees. What if you have bad knees? What if you have bad knees? Just like I said, when I go to the gym, I handle my business actually, but my business. Because bodybuilding, there's a business to bodybuilding. Supply and demand is the name of the game. I need exercise that's gonna hit my glutes. My knees are fucked up. What if you got fucked up knees? What if you got fucked up knees, but you still want to get some more volume in your glutes? You've already done your squats. Now your knees had enough, but you want to give it a little more for your glutes. Ding! Supply and demand. The hip thrust allow you to get some more volume in the glutes without your knees being a factor, which again proves hip thrust ain't overrated. You need healthy knees to squat. You need healthy knees to do sumo deadlifts or sumo squats. You need healthy knees to do deep lunges, especially if you're doing different variations of hip flexion where you're really going deep. You need healthy knees for this stuff. Just like the 3 upsides he mentioned that clearly prove is not overrated. 1, you get to isolate the bodybuilders. We love isolating our muscles. 2, it's proven to work with science to back it up. We have studies backing up it works. And 3, a better mind-muscle connection, a deeper neuromuscular connection. And then, if you got bad knees, this can help you hit your glutes with bad knees. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. So there it is, guys. This is why I think hip thrusts are not overrated. I feel like the argument Dr. Mike Israetel made is not strong enough to justify saying hip thrusts are not only overrated, but way overrated. His 3 upsides contradict his statement, and his 2 downsides aren't strong enough. What do you guys think? Also, Mike Israetel, Dr. Mike Israetel, if you're watching this video, and if you happen to watch this video, and you still think hip thrusts are way overrated, I would love a debate with you. I would love a debate, live debate. I would love to debate a PhD. See, one thing about me, I might not have no PhD or nothing like that, but I love, when I tell you, I love bodybuilding. See, when you love something, I want to know where you came from. I want to know where you're going. I want to know how you got here. See, baby, I want to know your do's, don'ts, wills, and won'ts. I love bodybuilding.